I will walk you out, your majesties. General Arthur bowed and extended his hand outward. Go back and tell the elders not to come out to see us off, Drakon commanded. As you wish, your highness, but I must complete my duty, General Arthur said as he walked them out. He didn't stop until they were at the main entrance of the Dragon Palace. I'll stop here. I wish your majesty and the prince a safe journey. Jacob turned to face General Arthur and replied, General Arthur, thank you for giving me the tour today. Goodbye. Goodbye? General Arthur froze for a moment before he realized that the prince was bidding him a farewell. He was overcome by Jacob's simplicity. No one had greeted him while taking a leave. He was touched and at a loss for words. Follow me. Drakon walked into the protection array formation and said, 3 to the left, 1 forward, 6 to the right. He started to give Jacob instructions again. Hurriedly, Jacob took out the water-repellent bead and put it in his mouth. He followed Drakon closely and cautiously. Standing at the gate of the palace, General Arthur looked at Jacob walking away. What a virtuous, considerate, and kind prince! I wonder when I will see him again, he thought. In the vast ocean, Drakon strolled forward while Jacob followed him anxiously, as if even one wrong step would cause him to burst into flames, which it actually would. He was afraid of missing out on Drakon's instructions, and so his entire focus was on him. They continued to walk for more than 10 minutes before they were out of the array formation. Although Jacob had the water-repellent bead in his mouth, his clothes were soaked, not by seawater, but by his nervous sweating. Jacob only took a breath of relief when they stepped on land. He spat out the bead and felt a bitter taste in his mouth. By now, the sky had turned dark, and the only illumination was the moonlight reflecting on the surface of the sea. Jacob took out his cell phone and saw that it was already 10 o'clock in the night. Although the legend said, 1 day in the Dragon Palace equals 1 year on land, it wasn't really the case. However, time had indeed passed a little differently and quickly. Drakon went over to start his car, and Jacob cleaned the bead and said to him, Sir, here's the bead you loaned me. You can keep it. Drakon started the car and said, Get in the car. It's already late. You can stay the night at our home and go directly to school tomorrow. Considering that Grandma and his parents had probably all gone to bed, Jacob nodded and replied, Thank you. What did you think of the trip? On the way back home, Drakon asked him. Very different from what I had imagined, Jacob answered. He didn't know how else to explain it. It was an unreal experience for him. Had someone told Jacob a few months ago that he was going underwater to the Dragon Palace, he would have laughed at that person's face and probably called them insane. I go back to the Dragon Palace once every month to deal with the backlog of work. Today, I took you with me so you could look around. Although we don't live there, the Dragon Palace is an important place for us. It's like our first home, Drakon said. Jacob nodded. He suddenly thought of the incident in the Ice Palace and asked, Today, when I toured the Ice Palace with General Arthur, I saw an Immortal Maid being imprisoned in an ice block. Did you know about it? I did. She is an Immortal Maid sent down from the above realm 200 years ago. Now that I think of it, the imprisonment time must have come to an end by now. I asked General Arthur to release her, Jacob said. He was hesitant to tell Drakon this, as he didn't know if he was even allowed to do that. To Jacob's surprise, Drakon was quite calm about it. She is just an Immortal Maid who made a mistake. It is no big deal if we release her. After all, We can't imprison her in the palace forever, he said. Drakon wouldn't deny his son-in-law this little authority and didn't blame Jacob for his interference. Besides, he knew General Arthur, a cautious man, would handle this issue well. He was actually quite happy that Jacob took an interest in such a matter at all. Jacob was relieved because he had been afraid that Drakon would scold him for taking such a decision without consulting him. The car drove steadily on the highway. They reached home after driving for an hour. It was already 11 o'clock by the time they arrived. Helen heard the car and came downstairs in her pajamas to greet them. "You're back. Are you hungry?" she asked with concern. She had already expected them to come home late and was also expecting Jacob to stay with them. "No, I'm not," Jacob shook his head and replied. Having eaten 2 small red fruits, he was still full. However, he felt a bit tired after walking around the whole palace. He had visited so many different buildings, and they were all so massive. "I'm not hungry either. Let's call it a day." Drakon took off his jacket and said in a tired voice. He had spent the whole day carrying out his duties as the king and was exhausted. Jacob now understood why Sophie was not eager to go to the Dragon Palace. It was a gigantic place, the trip ended very late, and Sophie was the laziest person he knew. "You stay the night in Soph's room. I need to work on some of my designs in the studio," Helen said to Jacob. Jacob was hesitant to sleep in Sophie's room as he remembered what his father said to him the other night. "Can I sleep in the room my grandma used?" Jacob asked. "Since your grandma won't come back soon, I sprayed some bug repellent in that room. It smells horrid in there. You won't be able to stay there for even a minute," Helen explained with an apologetic smile. Jacob stopped speaking when Helen began to drag him upstairs with her. They stopped at Sophie's door and knocked. "Don't worry, Mom. I'm going to sleep in a little while." Sophie's yell came from inside the room, thinking that it was just her mom asking her not to stay up late. "This girl—" Helen took out a key and unlocked the door. Sophie was in her pink pajamas and a casual ponytail. She was crouching in her chair playing games on the computer. She turned and froze for a moment. "What are you doing here?" she asked after she recovered from the initial shock. "Jacob will sleep in your room tonight. Stop playing games and go to bed now," Helen said as she dragged Jacob into the room. She took out the bedding from the wardrobe and placed it on the rug beside Sophie's bed. "Why?" Sophie asked. She was confused. Jacob had stayed at their place a couple of times, but he had never stayed the night in her room. "I need the studio in the attic tonight, and I sprayed bug repellent in the guest room. Plus, the living room is far too cold for sleeping. He has to stay in your room for the night," Helen explained while spreading out the bedding. Once she was done, she turned to Jacob and said, "Jacob, go to bed soon. You must be tired." "Thank you, Helen," Jacob said sincerely. "Can you make sure she sleeps soon as well?" Helen asked Jacob, but walked out of the room before he could answer. After Helen had shut the door behind her, Jacob stood glued to his place, and Sophie also completely forgot about her game as they looked around the room awkwardly. "I'll get freshened up." Jacob finally broke the silence. "Yeah, I'll also get back to my game." Sophie tried to play it cool and turned back to her computer, only to find that her character had already died in the game. Jacob smiled a little as he watched Sophie hit her head lightly. He then unbuttoned his jacket and walked toward the bathroom. Seeing his familiarity with her room, Sophie felt a little tug in her heart. She was not sure how to act, as she had never shared her space like this before, especially with a boy. So she restarted the game and tried to focus on it. Jacob came out of the bathroom after a while and looked at Sophie, only to find her completely engrossed in her game. He had never met a girl who loved video games as much as Sophie did, and, according to him, it was a very attractive trait. Having nothing else to do, he simply laid down on the makeshift bed that Helen had set up for him and watched Sophie do her own thing from a distance.
Please subscribe to the Pocket FM YouTube channel and press the bell icon for instant notification. Check out our channel for more such exciting shows.